La guerra está centrada en esos momentos en los combates y ataques aéreos israelíes en la zona de Han Yunes, pero la región y Estados Unidos tienen centradas sus miradas y también preocupaciones en lo que pueda pasar seguramente en la zona de Rafah, más al sur de Han Yunes. Y es que Israel afirma que para acabar completamente con Hamas no puede dejar los 4 batallones que tiene Hamas en la zona de Rafah, y por eso dice Netanyahu que debe hacer una operación terrestre en esa zona cercana a la frontera con Egipto. El problema es que en esa zona hay en estos momentos 1.300.000 palestinos. La inmensa mayoría son evacuados palestinos que salieron en las últimas semanas, meses, debido a la ofensiva israelí de otras zonas de Gaza, y por tanto deberían evacuar ya por segunda vez consecutiva, incluso por tercera vez. Estados Unidos, varios países temen que haya graves problemas humanitarios. Jamás ha afirmado que Israel, si hace esta operación en Rafah, provocará una matanza horrible. Mientras tanto, el presidente palestino Mahmoud Abbas señala que es parte del plan de Israel para expulsar a los palestinos de sus tierras. Al mismo tiempo, Rey, hay que destacar que el ministro de Exteriores de Israel Katz, ha vuelto a pedir la dimisión del jefe de UNRWA, Felipe Lazzarini, el jefe de la Agencia de Naciones Unidas para los Refugiados Palestinos, después de que el ejército haya afirmado que halló un impresionante túnel con armas debajo de la sede de esta agencia, que es tan importante para los palestinos en momentos normales y también en momentos de drama y crisis humanitaria en la franja de Gaza. Lazzarini ha respondido de forma inmediata afirmando que ellos no saben lo que hay debajo de la sede y que en ningún caso colaboran con Hamas. Mientras tanto, como decía, en Han Yunes continúan las operaciones terrestres israelíes con combates y ataques, y en Rafah también ataques aéreos, pero aún no hay ningún tipo de indicio de un ataque terrestre. Por último, decir que según un funcionario israelí citado por la CNN, Netanyahu habría dicho a su gabinete que la operación en Rafah debería acabar antes del inicio de Ramadán, es decir, antes del 10 de marzo.
It's important to say that I went into the Gaza Strip with the Israeli military, which means that I was only able to see what they allowed me to see. And I can tell you, even then, the level of destruction and devastation that I witnessed was just unbelievable. As we drove from the border fence between Gaza Strip and Israel towards Khan Yunis, I did not see a single building that was not damaged in some way, and most were destroyed beyond any recognition. There is just piles and piles of rubble everywhere. And the Israeli military says that this level of destruction is down to the fact that they are trying to destroy this tunnel system that they say Hamas has built underneath much of the Gaza Strip. And that's what they wanted us to see. So we visited these 2 underground compounds just under a residential neighborhood in Khan Yunis, where Israel says some of the hostages that were taken during the October 7 terror attacks were taken and held. And they also say that this is a compound where some of the top leaders of Hamas were hiding during this war. So we walked into the tunnels, and I can tell you that the experience of being inside, being underground, is just horrific. The spaces are very narrow, the whole place is very warm and very humid. You feel like you can't breathe because there is no fresh air. And it kind of feels very claustrophobic, as if the walls were closing in on you. And then you walk in, and there are all these little rooms, little caves that have tiled walls, and that you can see that there was some level of design going into these rooms, because, for example, in the kitchen, you can see patterns on the tiles, and you can see floral motifs in this underground military compound. And then we went to see the room where some of the hostages were being held, and that was truly a horrific experience. It's a very narrow room. There is a cage-like gate in the middle of the room. The walls are very moist and sticky. It's very humid, it's very warm, and if you switch off the lights, it just plunges into complete darkness, which means that you immediately lose any sense of time, space. You have no idea what's going on above the ground, and it just feels really, really hopeless. Ivana Kutasova, CNN, Tel Aviv, Israel.
There's no indication yet that the Israeli government has actually given the IDF an order to go into Rafah with ground forces yet, but UN agencies are extremely concerned. The 1.4 million people living there, 300,000 residents, more than 1 million displaced, that they're already in a precarious humanitarian situation. A military incursion there could put them in even greater danger. The IDF has been told by Prime Minister Netanyahu to come up with an evacuation plan. That isn't made public yet. The Egyptians on the other side of the border are concerned that people will try to escape out of Rafah into Egypt itself. The Saudi government said that they're very concerned about the seriousness of the situation and what could happen to people. They're saying that this needs to be discussed at the UN Security Council. During the day on Saturday, the IDF say that they struck 3 Hamas operatives, 2 of them senior operatives, in a strike inside of Rafah. Palestinian authorities inside Rafah say that 5 policemen were hit in an apparent drone strike on their vehicle. It's not clear if these 2 are the same incidents. And in the north of Gaza today, the IDF say they have found a substantial tunnel underneath the offices, the main offices of the main UN agency, UNRWA, in Gaza. They say that there were electricity cables coming down from that office into the tunnels. They say when they searched those office buildings, they found weapons, ammunition stores there. Now, UNRWA has responded saying when they were told to leave 12th of October by the IDF to evacuate, they did. They've had no control over the building since. They can't say what was there. They say they're not aware of these tunnels underneath, and they say when they had been aware of what could be tunnels, they've drawn it to the attention of the UN and of the Israeli government. The foreign minister of Israel has come back at the head of UNRWA and said that's not even the right response, because how could you not know? You were aware. This spat between the Israeli government and UNRWA only seems to be ratcheting up at the moment. Nick Robertson, CNN, Tel Aviv, Israel.
More about what Israel's saying about what they called a data center under the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. UNRWA says the tunnel there, well, it's well below the headquarters. They say they didn't know anything about it and they've been out of the building since October. Tell us more about this data center.
So this is a data center that the IDF says it found directly underneath UNRWA's headquarters in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Not only was it directly underneath, the IDF says, but that there were cables going from the data center underneath to the UNRWA headquarters above, and indeed drew its electricity from the UNRWA headquarters. Now, as you say, the head of UNRWA has said that it had no idea what was going on beneath its building. It doesn't have the capability to investigate these kind of things, and in the past, when it has suspected that Hamas or others have been operating in or around its facilities, it has registered its protest. But I think that this also comes at the worst possible time for UNRWA. Not only is it trying to satisfy the humanitarian needs of all of those displaced Palestinians, many of whom are in a desperate situation, but of course, this also comes in the wake of those allegations by Israel that at least a dozen members of UNRWA were actively involved in the Hamas-led terrorist attacks of October the 7th. And as a result of that, many countries have suspended its funding to UNRWA. Israel will hold this up as another piece of evidence to show that UNRWA is not fit for purpose and ought to be disbanded. UNRWA will say that it didn't have any knowledge of this, and it is the only game in town when it comes to dealing with the Palestinians and trying to satisfy their humanitarian needs. Michael?
All right, appreciate the update there. Elliot Gotkin for us in London.